Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 4, Episode 1. It's called In His Image. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. And this is obviously the start of a new season, which is always kind of a, maybe not a big deal, the way we oversell it. Let's not be hyperbolic up in this YouTube video, but this is a bit more notable than normal because this season switches the show's format from half hour to a full hour per episode, which in this time frame is about 52 minutes without the ads. Given how we watch it now, we're not watching it with the ads sprinkled in, obviously. Which just shows you how much things have changed since the 60s, because now an hour-long show is 41 minutes without ads on network TV. But yeah, so we're going to get into it. We'll see how the format change affects things. And are you excited for a whole new season of Twilight Zone?
Yes, always. Especially because I really don't know that I've seen any of these.
Well, I've definitely not, because once we got into season 3, I was basically into uncharted territory, I think, barring maybe a couple early episodes. So everything from this point out is completely new to me. The only exception being is that There's Something on the Wing is such a famous clip that I've definitely seen at least a clip of that episode. But other than that, nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I said it last time, but I've watched Twilight Zone a lot my entire life, and only on television when they would play it. Like I think usually I would always watch the marathons, which I think they did on New Year's, they being like Sci-Fi Channel and
they still,
whatever other channels that played.
I don't know if it's Sci-Fi still, but there's a channel that still does it on New Year's, I think. I'm sure
maybe it's been going on for a long time.
In fact, I know this because the first year we did this, a lot of our reviews spiked in viewership over New Year's. I guess people were in the mood because we were watching. So
right, yeah. So yeah, but because of that, they tend to show the half-hour episodes. I don't remember any two-parters or hour-long episodes.
Which is funny because you think it's a marathon on all day anyway, so what difference does it make if some episodes take up an hour block instead of 2 half-hour blocks? Like, who cares? But
especially like if you play them, like a lot of times, even in syndication, they'll play episodes back to back for an hour.
Yeah. So you wouldn't even have to change the, like, let's say you're doing a double bill every night, and then you get to season 4. It's not like you have to change the format. It's just one episode instead of 2 for 18 days. And then back to your double bills. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I have seen them and I just don't remember them ever being an hour.
Yeah, maybe. Well, let's get to the first episode then. So, In His Image, which, I mean, it's about a robot. I'll just say it straight up because the episode makes it pretty clear it's about a robot quite early on. And I actually don't know if that was the right call, because I think if they didn't have intentional electric sounds for certain moments, they could have played it as more of a twist later when he realised, instead of it being kind of like, well, we're kind of thinking robotics, we're thinking that type of thing.
Honestly, because he said he was a computer software developer or something, and because of my 21st century brain, I kept thinking virtual reality. Like, is this going to be a virtual reality thing? Which I guess would be too dissimilar from the pilot episode of the series. But that's where my head was going.
Yeah, the fact that
I was kind of surprised to see cybernetics.
The fact that he said his job was a computer software developer or salesman or something like that, I think
NCT software.
I think this is actually this isn't a reference to this, but I'm saying there's an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer which I think is referencing this, which I've never obviously realised because I've never seen this before. But there's an episode with a robot, and his job is that he sells computer software. And I'm just thinking, maybe, I mean, it could just be the same idea that they thought it would be funny to have a computery job, but it may be a reference to this. I could see that being a thing.
It's not a reference to The Lonely.
No, no, definitely not. Although Buffy's mum was potentially shacking up with him, so there could have been some influence there. But
was he a baseball player also?
No. They did play mini golf.
That would be the trifecta.
They played mini golf at one point in the episode, but no baseball. The episode's about this character named Alan. I almost said Walter, because technically that's also true later, but Alan to begin with. And he's on his way to meet a young lady. Although, this is another episode where I'm not quite sure the actors' ages line up with what they're saying in the show.
Well, she doesn't really say her age. She says she's older than 29.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about her. I'm actually talking about him, because he says he's in his 20s, right? And I was like, I don't know if I believe that. You look at, you're at least add 10 to that, because I'm not buying 20s. But later in the episode, when it becomes clear that he's based on a real person, and he meets the real person, and all the memories are from like 20 years ago, so I'm like, okay, so the real guy's about 40 then, and that makes more sense. But what's weird though is that when he meets the real guy later, it's the other version of him's not wearing like some older age makeup to like differentiate them. They look the exact same. And I'm like, what? So okay, I get that, like, him as a robot, right? The one who just thinks he's this Alan. I get that he might not see that he looks the wrong age, and he just thinks he's this age. But it's a little weird that when he says he's in his 20s to like the woman he goes to meet, like, she doesn't go, looking a bit rough there for 23.
It's been a hard life.
Had a rough childhood, did you? So I don't know. It's not like a huge deal, but it's one of those things. It's especially once he meets like the real version of him, and he's like meant to be that age that he is. It felt even weirder, because there should be a difference.
Not all of us can pass for 20.
I'll let the awkward silence speak for itself there. So yeah, but there's a kind of a dark start to this episode. He kills a random woman in the subway station on his way to meet this lady. It's a really creepy opening.
He's overwhelmed with the compulsion to murder.
I'm not going to lie, this is one of the most sympathetic, empathetic, and justifiable random murders I've ever seen in a piece of fiction, because the woman will not shut up about God.
Yeah.
Do you read the good book? Do you read it? Oh, he hears you down here. He knows if you're sinning. I'm like, oh yes, throw in front of the train. Ah, happy days. It was a feel-good story.
She kept going on and on about the devil also, and there's like a picture of the devil even behind her the whole time. I guess maybe she senses that he doesn't have a soul. Maybe that's what this is. So she thinks he's compromised.
Well,
maybe he's the soul of the devil, but actually he's just a robot.
She says he reminds her of her husband who killed himself. Her husband who was an alcoholic. That's what she says. He's got the same look.
Right. But he doesn't drink.
No. He's a newborn, basically, for lack of a better term.
Right, he's not old enough.
But yes, but he hears like, it's almost like he hears like sort of like these distorted effects in his head, and later on there's like a voice added. But I think this first time there might not be a voice yet. But it's just like electric sounds and stuff like that, and he pushes her in front of the train, and that's kind of your dark open to the episode. But he goes to meet this young woman, and honestly, their like setup here is a little bit weird, I would say, in that like it feels like, okay, they've been in communication, but it's kind of like a blind date to a point, but they seem to know each other a little bit, but they're kind of talking about like they're probably going to get married if this goes well.
I think she said like she met him technically like 4 days ago or something.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure what the details are.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. Yeah, I think
it sounded like, they're both lonely people, and they're like, maybe they answered an ad or something.
Yeah,
like, this will work.
I think because she referred to herself as a spinster, and she's like doing this because
maybe she wants to have kids or something.
Yeah, so it feels like she's maybe like, pushing the fast forward button a bit. Just like, let's just let's hope this works, right? Let's just take a risk and go for it.
There's nothing wrong with spinsters.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're going on a trip to his hometown. That's kind of the framing of the episode and where it goes from here. We'll get into the rest of the plot in a bit, but this is probably a good place now that we've set up the gist of it. Tara, what did you think of In His Image?
Oh yeah, I forgot that you asked me this part. I liked it, actually.
Only been about 80 episodes so far, but well, more than that, actually.
Yeah, I like this episode. I have a feeling that all of these episodes you're going to have to question whether or not it deserves to be double the length.
I think that's a natural...
I'm assuming you're going to say no to all of them. But I actually do like that this one's longer, because I think that the episode is able to go to more places and get more conversations out of interesting characters that I enjoyed. And I didn't find it boring or too long.
I think it's natural to because it changed its format. I think it's a very natural thing for each of these episodes to be like, well, did this make use of that extra time? Not necessarily did it need it, but did it make use of it? Did it use it in a way that helped the story? And to be honest, I didn't have a problem with the length of this first one. I mean, I suspect there's going to be some in this batch of 18 that I do feel probably are a bit stuffed just to get it to that runtime. I think this, though, like, you get a lot more of what I imagined compared to a 30-minute version. I think you get a lot more of him, like, noticing the early signs and kind of like the mystery of it probably gets a bit more time to build up. Likewise, like when he does meet his creator later on, you get a bit more of a monologue there, like just things like that. What was interesting to pay attention for this time, though, is that instead of one ad break, there's three, because it's an hour long. So you get the one you would have gotten, you get the one that would be between two episodes, and then you get the one that would be in the middle of the second episode, right? To break it down. And what I thought was interesting is just looking for, like, okay, most episodes of this show up until this point, there's like a handful but I've pointed out in the past that have really weak, just kind of, I guess they just had nowhere to cut it, so they just went there. But for the most part, they tend to have good, this is what the episode is really about cliffhanger right at the ad break. That tends to be kind of what they do. And it was interesting watching this one and looking for what the ad, because there's three of them now, so what are the three cliffhangers going to be for the ad breaks? And they're not bad, actually. I think the third one is maybe the weakest, but like the first two are pretty good, like, points in the story. The first one is they go to, there's already been some weird signs that, like, things in the town aren't quite what he remembers. He got details wrong, so things are starting to feel a little bit strange. But the first cliffhanger is when he goes to what is supposed to be where he lives with his aunt. And there's a guy there who's like, this is my house, get away, you pest. And at this point, the woman's like, red flag should be like, just like, you know, throw it up all over the place.
They are. I like her acting a lot in this. I think she's quite good, and she, you know, is so excited about this relationship, and she's suddenly overwhelmed with the feeling of, I don't really know who this guy is, because so far everything's coming up wrong.
Yeah, and more so than the typical sense. You know, it's one thing to go on a bad day. It's another thing to be like, he's delusional. I mean, at least
we might need a hospital.
Yeah, like because obviously we're it's the Twilight Zone, so we're thinking all these like fantastical things. But from her perspective in the real world, if this happened, you'd be like, this man is disturbed, and I should probably take him to the police or whatever, and like let them like take care of him or something.
And it's interesting the way that, you know, the mystery progresses, because we know it's Twilight Zone and we don't know exactly what's going on. I mean, we hear like the little technology noises in the background and sometimes a voice. Like, clearly there's some kind of link to something else happening, and because it's Twilight Zone, it's going to be real. But like, I was thinking, so did he travel to the future or something? Because he has that line saying everything, it feels like it was 20 years ago, like the way I remember it.
Yeah, I think my immediate assumption, and it wasn't exactly right, but my immediate assumption was that all of the memories he got were all 20 years old. Like, they were all from a time in the past, but not...
But they like throw a wrench at it when he goes to his place of work and there's just no building there. It's just grassland. Like, nothing was ever there even 20 years ago.
I'll be honest, for a moment when he's pointing at things, I thought he could see it, and like she couldn't. And he was like, "Oh man, he really looks crazy now." The second ad break though is where he like sees like robotics. He gets his arm gets cut and he pulls the skin back, and he's, you know, it's basically like a really cheap version of Terminator 2's like arm ripping off scene. And he's like, "Oh dear, what's going on?" Which, by the way, can I just say this might be the most impressive stunt I think we've seen in a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes. I know exactly which one you're talking about. That was really good.
It's this moment where he's we'll get to why he's left on his own in a minute, but he's out on his own in this, like, you know, countryside road, and a car comes towards him and he dives out the way. But honestly, I think the car actually like clips his foot as he's diving.
I think it does. Yeah.
And
I watched it twice, because at first I was just like, whoa. And so I looked at it again and I couldn't believe they did this stunt. Because normally, especially like cars hitting people in Twilight Zone.
Episode
it's
2.
always implied. It's always terrible.
Episode 2, I think it was, of the first season, was the little girl.
With the little girl, yeah.
And we didn't even see it, which is fine. I get why you don't want a stunt girl like diving from a car, but like even the way she was just lying on the ground looked like fake. It looks suspect. That's not how you would land. But this was like, no, this guy dove. He dove properly and almost mistimed it, and probably I mean, the car wasn't going that fast, so I'm sure it wouldn't have injured him that much if he'd got hit too badly in the leg. But
I don't know, like, it's a big machine.
yeah. He seemed fine. He seemed
okay, but like it was definitely like the last moment that he could have gotten away before maybe losing a leg.
It's funny, the riskier it gets, the better it'll look in the end, because it'll look close.
Yeah,
that's the sad irony of it. But yeah, no, really, yeah. I'm not sure if it was meant to be that impressive. It feels like he almost just didn't make it.
Yeah,
and that's why it looks so good. But it probably wasn't meant to be that close.
Yeah.
But hey, yeah, it stuck out to me. So yeah. Actually, I will say one of the things that I thought was a little bit odd in the first half of the episode is that the guy who was staying in the house that he believed was his house shows up with a policeman because they go to the cemetery to see if his parents' gravestones are there, and obviously the years are like further back than he expected, like they died a while ago. But this homeowner shows up with the police officer, and I was like, I feel like, okay, it was a bit weird that this guy came to your house, but he did kind of leave pretty quickly. There was no real...
It's a really small town.
I guess.
I in the 50s, I suspect that any unwanted outsiders the police would call. Would be called on that. I'll
accept that, but what made it weirder to me, though, is the actual interaction with the police officer and this homeowner, where they come and go, hey, here's this gentleman here says you showed up at his house and made a bit of a commotion. And he's like, yeah, I did. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. The police goes, was that sufficient? I'm like, well, what if he said no? Like, are you going to arrest him for making a bit of a commotion? Like, I don't know. Maybe I am being naive here, but this just all felt a bit weird. And like,
it felt very First Blood to me, also.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah,
But I think this is not as nefarious. Well, maybe it is a little bit, because it's probably used all the time in the 50s to like question why anybody of color is in this town. I mean, this is just some outsider who is, well, to them, an outsider who might have some mental disability or something going on. To be fair,
though, I do think this policeman, he does, like, as soon as he sort of hears them talk for a little bit, he actually takes the woman aside and says, hey, I think your friend might, like, need to go to the hospital. That's actually more compassion than I would expect from, like... small town cop in the 50s. Like you say, I'd expect him to be First Blood, kind of like, we don't like your kind in here, get away, you freak, kind of like that attitude. And he's actually like, once he kind of hears him speak and he sort of gets a little bit of the gist of what he's like, maybe you should take him to a doctor or something and see if he's okay, kind of thing. But that seems
white.
That scene stuck out to me as just being feeling a bit weird.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, about the runtime is I think that it does set up... I think what it offers the episode is that we get to spend enough time with these two together. As much as I do think like their pairings like not completely convincing. Like, later on in the episode when she leaves him a message or she calls him, she says that, I never meant to fall in love with you, but I did. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know if I'm quite buying that necessarily. But what I did like about it is that it spends enough time with them interacting, and the idea that, she is lonely, she wants someone, she seems to like him enough despite all of his weird, crazy antics.
They have good chemistry together, like when he shows up at the door and they like play a little bit first, and then, I don't know, they seem kind of sweet and happy together.
Yeah. But what it sets up is that later on when our Alan, like, because he keeps hearing this name Walter, right? He looks up this name in the phone book or whatever. He finds Walter, who turns out to be him, right? It turns out to be the creator of him, and it looks like him. So we get this, literal in his image idea. Obviously, that comes from the idea of God creating man, all that jazz. Which, I mean, thematically does tie into the episode because we had the woman at the start with preaching about salvation and whatnot. I don't know why Terminator Salvation is terrible. Don't preach it. Go away. But okay, I admit it was a dumb joke, but
also Terminator Salvation is not terrible.
I'm not proud of it.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, you got it.
I mean, we are dealing with robots here, so it's not a completely ridiculous pull.
Sure.
But yes, so he's shocked. Obviously, Walter explains who he is, and that he says he's adamant he's not a robot, although he does admit he's a machine. So honestly, your semantics here, buddy, a little bit.
He compares him to a refrigerator and a watch at one point.
But he also says he's the perfect copy of a human being, which seems to go against that thinking, but, whatever.
Yeah.
He takes him down to his lab and he tells him about everything. He says he was quite lucky. He never really expected to succeed as much as he did. And they kind of get to his kill impulse thing, which honestly, I think the moments are cool when he does, because that's why he ends up left alone, because he's with Jessica, the love interest, and he gets this urge to kill again, but he's able to kind of fight it, and because he's holding a rock, he runs out into the forest, and he's yelling at her to come over, but he's able to fight it enough to tell her to go away so it doesn't hurt her. And it's okay, this is kind of interesting, and it's kind of unhinged, but in a sci-fi way. I guess my only real disappointment of this is that there wasn't really much to this other than the creator just explains it in a line of dialogue. Well, I guess you don't have the conscience to hold back when you get this urge, but I'm no, he specifically gets a voice in his head saying kill, 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 every so often. This is this is a bit more than when someone pisses you off enough that in your head you might go, oh, I wish I could just kill them and be done with them, but you don't, because you got morality, you got empathy, you got all the things that stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. All the situations though where he does get to a point where he gets the kill urge, they mostly just kind of come out of random enough moments. Maybe he's a little bit emotional, maybe he's in a situation where he's stressed, but it's not like the person themselves is if anything, the guy who opened the door at his house, who claimed it was his house and got mad at him, that's the moment I would expect that maybe he would get pissed off and start to think, murder, death, kill, murder, death, kill.
Or even when the cops showed up, yeah.
Yeah. The moments he actually gets the urge are just kind of random for the most part. So I would say that it feels... I was hoping there'd be more to it, and the explanation didn't quite fit. Even I like the idea in general. I like what he says as an idea. I don't know if it fits the episode and what actually was going on, though.
Yeah, okay. I would agree that the moments of the impulse need to kill is explained by his maker as, well, everybody gets these desires to murder. I don't know if I've ever had that desire to actually take a life from anything, but we all are not really capable. Most of us aren't even really capable of that because of empathy and all the things that stop us from doing it. But because you don't have that, the impulses are just too strong, and you don't know that those impulses are wrong, so you act on them. I thought that was an okay explanation, but even we have seen that he does have empathy, and even when he has to communicate with people in the neighborhood, he's frustrated, but he still is polite enough.
Yeah.
So not to upset anybody too far, or and he's has the capacity to love. He feels empathy for his fiance. So I don't really understand exactly why these impulses kick in when they do, and that he doesn't have the right tools to stop them.
Fiance. Yeah, 90-hour fiance.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a reference to, I believe, a popular show called 90 Day Fiance, which I've never seen, but it's a reality show people like, apparently.
I have heard of it as well.
Yes. It was a topical reference. You're welcome, audience.
Yep. You are no longer the weakest link.
Not as topical.
No.
But in fact, funny enough, about 20 years.
I don't know. I don't watch those shows.
No,
I
that's
only
about
watch Twilight Zone,
like 15.
Star Trek.
So now what I was getting at earlier, though, when I was saying how like we get to spend enough time with them trying to connect with each other as he's starting to unravel, and then him being able to fight off the urge. I think that scene in particular, like that's the best one of the episode because it has like a real narrative and character purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The guy in the car who drops him off afterwards is just kind of whatever. Like it's like if anything, that scene was a little paddy, but whatever. But what I like about this is that when he's having this debate with the creator, he basically, like the robot, Alan, right? Not Walter. The robot gets to this point because he finds out that Walter is this lonely guy who's never had time for love. He's always been lonely. And part of the reason why he wanted to make a robot version of himself, it was to make a version of himself who was better. Like, okay, had all the drive and ambition, but wasn't obsessive. Like, had the ability to go out and meet someone, wasn't lonely. Fix all the things he sees wrong with himself.
Which is why a lot of people want to have children or have the desire to have children is to make a better version of themselves. And this guy did it without, the women part of it. So, he just used his skills and to fulfill that desire. It's a little bit of, I wish I can restart and do things better, but instead I'll just make myself again, kind of like a child version. And, the whole parallels of like God and Adam is in here too, where he makes, a creation, but the creation does sort of betray him almost immediately. Yeah.
And the creation was in his image again, just to go back to that central, theme.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not accidental.
Oh, no, it's not, no. But what I like about this, though, is it sets up this thing where Alan starts saying to him that... I can't remember the way he phrases it, but he doesn't phrase it directly, but you can tell what he's saying is that Walter should go to Jessica. Like, he should be there for her. He should, like, get the life. He
says, you need to make a new Alan or a new Walter or something.
But he's not being literal. He's not saying make another robot. Because that's how he hears it. He's like, no, I'm not making another one. That's crazy. I'm not, like, I've done enough mad science for one life. Like, I'm good. But what he's meaning is, like, no, you need to go there.
Go and reinvent yourself.
Yeah, he writes down her address, and it's on the salvation leaflet that he got from the woman at the start, which is what triggers him. I guess he's just triggered by religious ideas.
Iconography,
So they end up having this fight in the lab, and I think what impressed me about the ending of this episode is a couple of things. One, I like that we get into this situation where the robot has effectively decided to try and help the human person that made him, even though he has every right to kind of like be mad at him for creating him and like leaving him kind of like faulty the way he is and all the other reasons. So yeah, that moment of realizations, I think is a good character arc ending for the robot version of this character. I also like the setup of this where they get into a fight and you have this natural thing where they look identical. So when it cuts away from the fight and goes to her apartment, but I know what you're going to say, but like, let me finish the point, right? You're going to complain that when they're in the scene fighting, yes, you can tell there's two different actors at times. I'm not like that's
not
irrelevant.
Just that, they're definitely none of them are the same actor. Like they're definitely two stunt actors fighting.
Sure, but that's not relevant to the point I'm making, though. Yeah, that's like a.
I know. That's why I just went Figured, fill in the blanks.
But when it cuts to Jessica's apartment and she goes to answer the door and we see him standing there, we don't know right away which one won the fight. We actually don't know, so you get this like sort of ambiguity. I almost didn't want it to tell me and like confirm it, because I kind of felt like just from the mannerisms and the way he was speaking, the fact that he put on a really nice suit, I kind of like already knew it was the human that won, and that this was a happy ending, that the human was going to like make a real try at doing this.
Right. Well, plus when she opens the door, there is a moment of like, oh, she's beautiful and everything I want.
Yeah, there's a reaction.
He has that reaction of, I mean, it could just be him, the robot, just excited to see her again, that she's okay and she's wants to see him. So
I don't even think it would be that ambiguous. I think the acting in the scene and the way it plays like gives you enough to like tell you it's the happy ending that it is the human. I don't know if I needed the confirmation shot at the end where it goes back to the lab and you see like the robot with the arm like lying there dead, but I do like that there's a setup here that it had me rooting for the human to win because that's the happy ending that the human kind of, and I think that's impressive as well.
Well, I want the happy ending for her as well.
Sure, but I think what's impressive here is that our protagonist is not Walter. Our protagonist is Alan the robot, and I think it's very impressive in this episode that he is the protagonist for the vast majority of it, but then when we get to this final act of the episode, it's able, because he sympathizes with the human who made him, it transfers to the audience, and we want him to sort of like sort out his problem and like find the happy life.
We've been watching his mirror the whole time, just a version of himself that he wants to be, with the exception of the one flaw, which is murder. Pretty big flaw. Yeah. So we are still rooting for the same guy, technically.
So the murder, that's why the murder thing was a bit tacked on, because it doesn't necessarily fit into it as well as everything else does. But
it does lead to the fight at the end where they have to fight for their lives.
To have the fight, sure, but like, I think his sympathy for the human and his own creation saying, no, you can have this, you can be the perfect version of you yourself. There's something really kind of nice about that, and actually in a weird way kind of like breaks away from kind of the religious theme that it's been going for, because this breaks away from the comparison. Like, you know, Adam doesn't turn to God and say, you can be better, you don't need me. Like, you know, God can do it all on his own. Like, this kind of separates it from that. It does kind of bring in the theme though, like to tie in that first scene. You know, this guy Walter who created the robot, he is closer to this husband who eventually killed himself, that the wife or the old woman was talking about, right? He's obsessive, he's lonely. He even says when he meets Alan that, oh, you tried to kill me when you escaped, and I almost kind of wish you did. Like, he's miserable. We even see him drink, actually. You know, he takes he's swigging like whiskey or whatever, and he says he's drunk.
He definitely doesn't look 20 years older, but he does sound older. Like, he sounds sad.
He said, yeah, the actor's doing a good job of playing the role differently. Yeah. So the idea that you transfer that sympathy and you actually successfully make me root for a character who's introduced in the last act, and as you say, because the robot is like an extension of him, it neatly kind of says, no, everything we've went through with this character, this version of this character, is still relevant, but it's relevant in a creative way, because it's not just that we've been with him the whole time, we've seen signs of who this person is and who he wants to be through someone else. So when we do get to this real person at the end, and we do root for him, he still doesn't feel like a complete stranger. It feels like, you know, everything kind of clicks together, and then when he goes to see Jessica, it does feel like a happy ending. You feel a bit uplifted. It's a very uplifting ending for a Twilight Zone episode, and I would say that the runtime of this episode is the only reason why they're able to do this. I don't think you could achieve all the things this sets up for this ending to pay off in 25 minutes.
I agree. I was thinking when I was watching it too, that a lot of films from this time kind of feel a bit padded for these similar types of stories. And this feels like the appropriate length for a lot of those like science fiction films from this era also. Like it tells a very concise story. I root for everyone I'm supposed to. I like the arc, and there's really not a lot of filler to me. Like, maybe the murder stuff is, but it doesn't bother me at all. Like, it definitely made the first half very compelling.
I wouldn't say the murder stuff's filler. I just wish when we get like an explanation for it, it tied better into the themes of the episode, and I'm not sure if it does. That's the only. If I was nitpicking the episode, there's a couple of things that, you know, we talked about the ages, the main guy and stuff, but I would say maybe there's like one or two scenes where I wouldn't say they're padding or filler per se. I wouldn't say that, but where I felt like, okay, we're maybe unnecessary, perhaps, is about, or they're just not up to the standard of the rest. Like, I'm thinking when the guy who ran him over, or almost ran him over, like drops him off at the hotel or whatever it is, like they have this conversation as he's leaving, and he's trying to ask him these questions, and it felt a bit phony to me, because I'm like, what, were you just silent in the car the way here, and you're just asking him all this now that he's getting out? You know, there was a slight disconnect in that scene, for example.
Maybe he had to wait for the weirdness to go away that he maybe almost killed him.
And then I mean, and I'm not saying it doesn't have value, because like obviously this guy's showing concern, he's showing compassion. This is something that maybe like in some way Alan is like absorbing a little bit. He's seeing someone care about him, so later on he's able to care for someone else. And if the whole episode's about two people who are lonely, this idea that he is able to solve the loneliness of the person who created him, and you know,
yeah, and it doesn't feel unfair to Jennifer. That's her name, right?
yes. Oh, no, sorry, Jessica. It's Jessica.
Jessica, yeah. It doesn't feel that unfair to her. Like obviously she's, you know, technically a stranger shows up at the end of it, but like if she is truly in love with the robot version of this guy, like she probably would prefer the real person.
Yeah, for sure. And it
like
also,
it is this secret that he's going to have to hold on to forever. But I think if she knew the truth, she would probably choose him anyway, if she wasn't too weirded out by the situation.
yeah, it's obviously very fantastical and hard, especially now that the robot's dead. It's hard to prove. I mean, I could always take her back, I suppose, and say, here's the body, here's the mechanical parts, like, but. I mean, it is a little disingenuous to an extent, but like you say, it doesn't feel unfair or cruel. It feels like, okay, she felt something for him, and there is parts of him that she's recognizing in the robot, so it's like, okay, and as long as he comes in, and as long as he is presumably just going to try and win her over and sort of like say, hey, like, this is who I am, I was a little confused, I'm all better now, and now he can tell her real things about himself. He can say, here's where I actually live, here's where I do this, here's whatever. Yeah. I'm a lot older than I said I was before. I hope that's not a problem. But
she seems okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if these episodes are sort of like episodes that they've had on the back burner because they're like, well, like it's a good idea for an episode, but we can't do it in 30 minutes. So we'll just put that aside in case we make a movie one day or something. Or, you know, we can get back to it later on if we feel like we can condense it more. So maybe like they have a bunch of stories and these episodes are going to feel like they deserve the hour.
I will say that is too early to say that. Let's watch a handful and see if they all feel like they...
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I will say that I don't know if I'd say it's the perfect length for it. I'd say you probably could have dropped maybe like 5 or so minutes. I think 45 minutes would have been just perfect for the story. But certainly nothing close to 25. Like I do think all the extra time here to build up the characters and the themes mean that, like, you know, like we're hitting like close to 40 minutes in this conversation, and we don't tend to hit that in Twilight Zone episodes, and it makes sense that there's more to talk about, but I do think we're talking more about like at least what it's trying to do thematically, and I do think the themes are there, and I think having that extra time to like establish all of these things is benefiting. At least it's at least like, you know, Twilight Zone's obviously can be very smart. There's 25-minute episodes, and they're cherished for a reason, and they're these short form pieces of media that get to the point and do what they're doing, but there is inherently only so complex or so layered you can get in 25 minutes if you're going to do it justice. And some of the ones that maybe try to do too much in 25 minutes, you know, it becomes a problem because there's just not enough time to really do everything that you're trying to do. Whereas this is like, no, it's not perfect. There's a couple of rough edges here or there, but I have to admit, I feel a lot more encouraged. I was a little bit worried about this season going into it, that it was going to feel like 18, like, because I don't hear like people talk about this season that much. And then not only that, the fact that they go back to the half-hour format in season 5 kind of suggests that they also thought it was a failure.
Yeah.
On some level. Now maybe it was only a failure because they wanted more episodes to spread out, or maybe it was only a failure for other reasons rather than because of the quality of the episodes. But there's an actual worry there. There's an actual worry and cause for concern. So
sure, yeah.
I'm somewhat relieved from this first episode, but it's only episode 1, so we'll see.
I was a little upset that they have a preview for the next episode.
Oh yeah, when Rod gives these
that showed a lot, so I stopped it.
Oh, okay. Did you Rod gives his little, you know, hype piece for the next episode, but as he finishes talking, it gives you a little sizzle reel of like the episode, and I presume the final moment of it, which I won't say because Tara stopped watching, I won't spoil what the last thing was, but I presume that's going to be like the end of either the first or second like part before the ad break.
Yeah. It just seemed to be going a little bit like,
too much.
oh, what's the mystery?
Yeah.
Oh, the mystery is this or it's this. And I'm like, okay, all right, I don't want to know anymore.
This might be twofold. This might be one, because they're an hour long now, they feel that they can show a little bit more of it without spoiling too much, because there's more that they're not
Right.
seeing. And two, and this is a really cynical, stupid thing, but like, oh, we need to pad out like 20-30 seconds at the end because we're not quite making the hour. Just put some clips in next week.
Yeah, I wonder if they just want to, now that they have, more time, they are able to show the trailer.
Yeah.
If they want to.
Yeah, so yeah, they do show. The episode it tells us about, we get a bit of a timey-wimey ship / submarine story. It's called
Looks
the
good.
30th Fathom Grave, and it seems to be about a submarine which starts like communicating seemingly in Morse code to the ship that passes by above. But this submarine, like,
Could be doing sonar.
yeah, this submarine like went down a long time ago. So it might be timey-wimey, it might be ghosts, might be number of things. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's giving me some PTSD of being on a ship, seeing those sailors.
I'd like to think that the technology of the Navy maybe progressed in the 50 years between this and when you were doing it.
You'd like to think.
Man, did their hats ever change?
Well, they allow women on now.
Oh yeah, true. That's a big difference. But it's that moment in Back to the Future when Marty sees Strickland and goes, "Did you ever have hair?"
They use the same communication system where the guy's like talking into the little thing that goes into the wall. It's all the same. Yeah.
I guess it's just like, it's the simple tech is the most reliable. It breaks
Right.
less. So
Yeah. Plus things flood. I guess they work in floods.
also, I guess you also can't hack into it in the same way. You can't, like, whereas
Right.
if it was
It's basically like when you're a kid and you make the little string with the two cups in the end. It's that technology.
Yeah, so I guess that's the logic behind it. But I'm always down for some mystery in the ocean. There's even some shots.
I like the look of it, actually. I think it looks good.
Because when they show the clips, the part that surprised me the most is some shots of people in diving suits, like actually approaching the sun. I was like, oh, but they've got like underwater sequences in this that are not stock footage, which I'm impressed.
Yeah, maybe Twilight Zone was just like, we've had 3 great seasons. We're really popular. Give us a budget. Give us more time. And whoever is just like, sure.
Yes. I hope it's not disappointing. Because I'm actually kind of hyped now.
I honestly like what I saw looked good. And I like is the rating good?
That's all right. Honestly, that's the other thing is there is no episodes this season because I just scanned the scores and none of them go out of the 7s. There's no 8s and up.
Oh, okay.
So maybe no classics this season, but I mean, if the one we watch for this episode is like the average, I'm not going to be that mad. I don't think, as long as I find something to get into, I think I'm going to be okay. But I'd go back for this episode. I think not perfect. I had some qualms here or there, but I thought it set up a story. It gave me an ending that I cared about the outcome, which even in good episodes of Twilight Zone, I don't even know if I necessarily root for a character at the end, because it's usually too short for that. It's usually just
right. We have a lot of time to really like this person, even though they murdered.
Yeah. Well, it's not really him. It's like the original guy we're rooting for ultimately at the end.
Yeah.
So it's
the one who created the murder machines.
Not intentionally.
This is very Noonien soon, by the way, making himself from data and accidentally building a lore.
Well, I was going to go back to Terminator and say that we don't blame Miles Dyson. He didn't know he was going to cause the apocalypse.
No, but he made the right decision when he found out.
Yeah, quite right. In fact, spoilers for the end of T2 here if you've not seen Terminator 2, but I suspect most of you have. Even Arnold at the end of that, he's like, I have to sacrifice myself for humanity, and that's kind of what. Are
you saying the T800 is our actual Jesus?
I prefer him to Jesus. hey, we've got footage of this Jesus. Give me the footage of alleged Jesus.
All right, well, we're done here.
Yes, Terminator's a documentary.
That's a very hard thing to say. I mean, just because the Terminators really make sense canonically with each other.
Just the first two. I would never include, like, even in a joke, I'm not including the rest of them. Like, come on now.
All the reboots are also.
See the earlier joke about Terminator Salvation for backup on that statement. So there you go. That's first episode of Twilight Zone season 4. So let us know what you think of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that jazz. You know, some nice exciting comments, wake Tara up a little bit. That'd be good.
Yep, for next time.
Yes. Tara, why don't you tell them all about Patreon?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. Jerk. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 1 week early. Thank you.
I chuckled a little bit because the "that's right" didn't fit with what I said, but that's all. That's all.
It fits just fine.
Why don't you do this? That's right. No. Okay. That's the show. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.